For those of you who may not follow as intently as others, this would explain why we've been a little bit lighter for content this summer. Hello YouTubers, this is noobifier. They say that everything changes for a reason, and despite having a sensational studio, it was time for a fresh start in 2024. My job is to make videos, so this is the first of several videos that's going to document the plan, build, and eventually the move. Hopefully you find this to be super interesting, and I hope that you might follow along. The first video will quickly cover what and why, and then discuss what we didn't know about buying property, finding a builder, dealing with the bank. So sit back and relax. Let me tell you about everything leading up to the day before we had building permits approved. March 2024 became clear that both my wife and I would be retired from the military. We met in 1997 at base Petawawa, the north side Canex to be specific, which is a little bit like a PX for my American friends. On my way to meet up with my friends, I'd stopped for drive-through on a motorcycle. So juggling a burger, fries, and a drink in my crotch, I stopped in to eat with those friends at the Canex. My future wife had just moved in and was also there. We became friends, we became better friends, and then it became clear that we would end up married. If you're in the military, being married to a person who's also in the military as a service couple is best, because as one member is posted around, the other is often usually posted around at the same time, to the same place. So she joined the military to follow a rich history in her family of service. We can jump all the way until just after COVID. I had just returned from my last tour of Kuwait. She had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, or MS. This is a service injury, and she would be medically released because MS and military service are mutually exclusive. So a forced retirement would quickly answer the why part of this story, and the what would be answered as that we would be moving. We decided we would like to remain near Ottawa, the capital, because it offers a bunch in a super small footprint with a population of around 1 million spread out over a 40-kilometer radius. The new plan was that beginning of early 2024, we would take time each Sunday to look at the listings in the area and venture out until we found something. As fortune would have it, the very first property was a 100-acre lot 20 minutes east. With car windows opened and coffee in hand, we hit the road. Ottawa is mostly flatlands with either farm or forest. We got to the spot and sure, there may have been 100 acres there, but it was swamp. And later we found out that it was locked down as an ecological preserve. So 1 square kilometer of turtles, birds, snakes, and water. Unacceptable. I didn't want to become a swamp lord. My wife wanted nothing to do with it. We made our way home somewhat defeated, but here's the fate part, or luck if you don't believe in fate. On the way home, our GPS sent us all the way down Payton Road, north of Kempville. We passed a for sale sign. My wife did a full 180 rubberneck to look at the house as we sailed by doing 80. She said stop. We had found the answer on our first day. A 3,000 square foot 2-story bungalow on 4 acres of land, a walkout basement, super pretty inside and out. We scheduled a meeting with the builders, the Everbuilt group. We fell in love with the main floor of the house. We loved the location, close to perfect, but there were 3 main issues preventing an offer. First, 4 acres and the zoning was just a little bit too small for all of the apiary activities that my wife would do in her retirement. Second, the walkout basement was definitely an upgrade from what we had, but the sim systems that I build are over 3,000 pounds sometimes, and I wanted to have everything on one floor. Third and fourth are really the same issue. So third is that I love my basement studio, but I also miss windows. And it's bad having the garage and the studio so separated. And fourth, my wife, newly retired because of MS, might eventually rely on a wheelchair from time to time. So everything needs to not only be on the same floor, but on the same level. The Payton house was perfect except for the basement, the stairs, and the property. We asked the builders if they would build that house again, and also if they knew of a place that we could build it. The next day they had all of the answers to these questions. Yes, they would build it for us, and yes, they knew of someone who had land for sale. The land sellers were selling 2 lots, one was 25 and one was 24 acres each. The lot that we were more interested in was the 25 acre because it had a tractor trail, was higher in the middle, and was naturally split into thirds. The front third was used for hay and grazing, a 6-acre field framed by trees, footed by the main road, and it had drainage on 4 sides. This large space was absolutely perfect for bees, farming, and my wife was sold on the idea, giving it a green light and rubber stamp. The middle third north of that field was mostly open, where the tractor trail ended. It was also the natural high point of the lot, next to a coverall that would remain on the property. Placing the house here would give us a full 360-degree view for about 200 meters. The taller trees around the perimeter would break the harsh winter winds, and then north of that clearing was cedar, pine, and birch. That forest already had a small trail cut through it with a couple of clearings which would be fun for camping. This was perfect. The offer was made to the sellers and we had the contractors who would build the perfect home on the land. We needed to find money, lawyers, and we needed to sell our house. Based on the equity in our house, we naively thought that this would be totally straightforward to get a building loan. Building loan is basically like a HELOC or home equity line of credit, but the monies are dispensed in payouts to the builder. Milestones would include the foundation, the frame, and then finish. The next part of the video is not really meant to overshare our personal information, but to prepare you if you're planning to build for yourself. So despite the equity in our house and the clean credit score, the bank was running our debt threshold at 7% rate. And according to the bank, that plan was risky. You can't put a lien on ground and you can't put a lien on an unfinished house. And this was super frustrating because the actual interest rate at the time was only 3.75 and it was dropping. But they said that they always check higher now to make sure that we won't go bankrupt before the house is built, before they can put a lien on something. So I asked the banker, is it actually likely that the rate's going to go up 3% in 6 months? And she said no. And then I asked, is the interest rate currently trending up or down? And then she confirmed that it was trending down quickly. So that was super confusing. We were getting nowhere with the banker and the building loan plan. So the strategy then changed to get a HELOC to put a down payment on the build and to buy the property. We were easily and quickly approved for this plan, which would all be zeroed out as soon as we sold our current house. We linked all of the lawyers together to deal with the purchasing of the land. Normally there's no tax charged on land in Ontario, but because this parcel of land was part of a larger plot and because the parcel was used for farming in the past, there would be an extra 13% called HST in Ontario, which would add about $50,000 to the cost, which, yeah, that sucked. My first piece of advice is going to sound super obvious, like really obvious. When making a deal, please fully understand the possible extras and discuss who pays for what parts, because this led to offers and counter offers back and forth for a week. It almost led to a stale offer, but during several discussions with the builder, things were put clearly into context. Our builder said that we would not find this land anywhere else for the agreed price, and she continued that this plot of land would normally command double because of the location, the road access, the easement, proximity to the town, proximity to Ottawa, the grade, the slope, the drainage, the road trail, and so many other factors. The land was open and cleared where we would be building. There was a high chance that the soil on the site would favor construction, thus saving money. She advised against letting the deal go stale, and based on her sound head and solid feedback, we went forward, and the land is fantastic. We just needed to get over that psychological issue of the unexpected cost. My wife and I spent more of summer 2024 there than at our actual house. I bought a small chainsaw and then I realized that I needed a larger one. I started clearing out deadfall into burn piles. I improved upon the wooden path in the back. We spent evenings enjoying the sunset by a campfire. And most importantly, we realized what our future life would feel like and how good it would be for us. We were away from the city, 500 meters back from the road. Quite beautiful, peaceful, and quiet, only broken by the occasional horse or cow announcing themselves. The builders now had a small deposit for architecture and planning, and as I said, the paid-in house would have been perfect except for land, stairs, and basement. Land was now sorted out, and stairs could be sorted out by deleting the basement and leveling out all of the floors with the grade. Therefore, the paid-in floor plan was brought level with grade, sinking the living space down while raising the garage up to meet it. No basement meant an insulated slab on grade. We lost square footage from deleting the basement, and we could recover that by tacking that onto the back of the garage. We most definitely now had the space for it. And this would become the studio and also serve as a public showroom for the simulator systems. This would also put the studio next to the garage, which with the right tools would become a hybrid workshop. Glass garage doors, glass side doors, glass windows, high ceilings, lots of lighting. By deleting the basement, we lost the usual service support space for electrical, HVAC, hot water, pumps, solar generators, and that was added back as a 20 by 10 room north side of the studio extension. I have a recording booth in the old house, so that 10 by 12 space was also added to the north side of that extension. By deleting the back wall garage windows from the original paid-in house plan, it would make more sense to add a fourth garage door, and being glass, it would be like having a window. The valuable wall space was preserved by doing this, and we gained a lot of flexibility. Very large all the way to smaller systems could be delivered to, uncrated, and assembled in the garage, and then through the large door, they could easily be wheeled into position for testing, refinement, and use. And all of this could be done by a single person, me. There was an issue, if we can actually call it that, and that's what I'm going to call the airlock. We have winter here, so opening any door directly from outside into the studio would drop the temperatures, and then of course you have wet boots and wet coats, which would become an issue. Opening a garage door directly into the studio from the garage would add dust and bugs in the summer, and once again would tank all the heat from that room into the studio during winter months. Dust would be a constant battle anyways, but any help would be a great quality of life improvement, and the systems would last longer with less risk of failure. I decided that adding a corridor between the garage and the studio would address 100% of these issues, and all it would take would be some framing and drywall, a fifth garage door mounted directly opposite to the fourth. A 42-inch width corridor was simply tacked onto the measured space of the studio plan. Other tweaks were done to the living space of the original plan by extending the east wall 3 feet to be in line with the original east wall of the garage. This would achieve a couple things. It would make a single load-bearing wall, plus all of that extra space would end up in the spare bedroom, the pantry, and push the dining room a little bit wider. The following summary of the work done spans 3 months of the summer of 2024. We began, as you might expect, with phone meetings and then an on-site meeting with all of the various parties responsible for different parts of the build. We now had a full plan and all of the parties were happy. The green coverall would remain to provide shelter for the build, and we would move it next summer. Test holes were excavated all around the build site to check for soil suitability. All of the foliage and all of the tall grass around the building site was bush hogged in preparation for basic landscaping and then a little bit more in-depth leveling. The foundation was measured out and roughly pinned in with wooden stakes while the basic landscaping continued, and this would later be more formally pinned by a survey team who came back a couple times. The farm trail would need to become a road to support the weight of the trucks that are needed for the build. We also needed a space to turn around and maneuver this type of traffic. The little Kubota turned out to be super versatile, with a PTO mower taking down all the grass, weeds, and small trees. And then after a tool change, it was also how the organic top layer was removed and how they were able to find the footing grade where the compacted soil would support the house. I have a 30-year background in the military operating APCs, tanks, forklifts, so when someone went to lunch, one of the Kubotas was left idle. I negotiated that I could work for free if allowed to, and I got a chance to help build a driveway for the rest of that day, which was super fun. I lacked skill and refinement, but I could roughly scoop up and place gravel that would later be leveled out by a much more skillful touch. We were told before buying the land that the property ended directly at the westmost edge of the westmost tire track. The gravel road was built along it and towards the east. We knew that the other plot of land would eventually sell soon, and this new driveway would eventually, or could eventually, be merged into whoever bought the land. They would just make it wider. The property lines, however, were confirmed by our builder. Always a prudent choice because these are the things that we need to know before making changes. As it turns out, the actual property line was a further 3 meters west from where we thought it was, and that placed the property line clear into the ditch. So in essence, this pretty much removed all chance or any chance that the driveway on the neighboring lot would be merged with ours. It would make more sense for that driveway on the other plot to be on the west side and nowhere near ours. With the road in place and safe and the land pinned, permits were submitted for septic, the build, and the well. Our builders cautioned us that the big surge of activity that we'd been witnessing would seem to stall out while we were waiting for approval. We were beginning to get later into the fall, and of course we had timelines and snow. Snow was definitely on our minds. Winter was just around the corner. The builders, based on their experience, had things pre-planned and prepared for inspection, and this was a common trend. If wood was needed on Thursday, we had wood on site Tuesday. If a piece of equipment was needed on Friday, that piece of equipment was there Thursday. It was really cool to watch. They were always 4 steps ahead, and this is why we were able to make quick progress that you're going to see in the second video coming up soon. And you should probably subscribe and follow me on socials if you use them, so you'll see that when it's released. The video is meant to take us from zero to permit approval, and because of some choice project management and a complete picture of the entire job, our builder, with approval in hand, went directly the next day to doing footings rather than wasting time. Our expectations were always exceeded, so stay tuned for part 2, which will detail the intricate process of building a house as winter approaches. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I know this content isn't normal for the themes that we normally cover here, but I hope you found it interesting. It definitely has a lot to do with what's going on with the channel, because it's basically how we're building the new studio. Studio 2.0. The goal is optimized workflow and new things to review and the continued evolution of the content. It's a win for everyone. Thanks very much for spending your time. See you next time.